And welcome back. From Hollywood to automotive production lines, labor unions in the United States find themselves thrust in the national spotlight once more. In 2023, approximately 453,000 workers have initiated strikes advocating for improved wages and working conditions across various industries in the aftermath of the pandemic. And joining me now and sharing more and providing some insight is the founding partner of the Boyd Law Group. We've got Patrick J. Boyd with us. And Patrick, good to have you. It's been a minute, but glad to have you back.
Nice to see you again, Dan.
Yeah,
Happy holidays.
happy holidays to you. And let's get right at it. When we talk about strikes, I mean, a lot going on across the United States. I talked about it in the lead. Let's kick off and talk a little bit about the United Auto Workers Union because a pretty substantial strike. And at the end, it seems as though some auto workers got what they wanted.
That's right. They're certainly going to have a happier Thanksgiving and Christmas in light of the negotiation results, I think. Sean Fain had been talking about wanting to present a meaningful ask to the auto manufacturers, if you will. And certainly the situation was this. When things were down, management said things are down, the union's going to have to make concessions. And now things are not down. And so the union said, we did our part, it's time for you to do yours. And yeah, it's almost a bulge breaking result here. They wound up getting, I believe it's a 33% overall increase. That's with the cost of living and other benefits thrown in, but a meaningful change in wages for lots and lots of hardworking people in the automotive plants. Another plant was opened that had been closed in Illinois. In addition, the there had been some dispute as to whether or not these plants would be able to and would work on, and the workers would get paid for working on electric batteries. That has now been explicitly included in the contract. So that work will be going to the auto workers. They will be paid for it, and they will be paid much more as a result, which is a pretty great result for the workers who had been working hard and made their concessions when they needed to, and the economy was not going well for auto manufacturing, and now they're reaping the benefits of that trade. So it's nice to see and a good result.
I mean, let's break down some numbers here. I mean, when you talk about the United Auto Workers Union, they really were looking for a huge increase there. They wanted about 40%. They ended up with about 36, but even still, 40%, that's major.
It is, and that's over a short amount of time. The contract expires in April 2008, so it's not all immediate, but it's still substantial, and some of it is right away. And it's really going to make a change. Another good piece of information, to the extent that they are leaders in the industry, and American industrial workers are leading places for others. After these results came down, Toyota, Hyundai, and Honda all renegotiated with their workers too. So people without the necessary protections of the union still wound up getting the wage increases because they knew the advocacy for those wages were going to come to them and that they would lose good workers otherwise. So that advocacy by the UAW on behalf of those workers wound up inuring not just to the benefit of those workers, but also other hardworking laborers in auto.
Talk about Ford for a moment. We understand that the retirees of Ford are also smiling today because there'll be some additional benefits that will be coming their way.
That's right. It's virtually an across the board improvement in retirement benefits, pension benefits, wage benefits, and then of course this reopening of a plant is not a common thing, but I think it's Belvidere, Illinois, where Belvidere, Illinois, where they're reopening a plant that had been closed. So just great, and you know. I would say also, Darren, fair. The truth of the matter is that the union made concessions when things were not good for the industry, and now things are good for the industry, and they got in kind. They made concessions before. Now they've gotten gains as a result. So in some ways, it was very contentious, of course, as it always is. But it wasn't a long strike. I think it was 50 days or so.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they gave before and they got now, and that's the way you want to see unions work with employers for mutual success and benefit, if you will.
And when you talk about the 50 days, that's a 50 long day period. I mean, when you think about being out almost 2 months, we can say, oh, that's not a lot of time. But when you're the auto manufacturer, you're saying that's a lot of time. People on this side of the desk, though, were quite honestly shocked at the fact that 40% as what they were going for, 40 and 36%, you might as well say that's a total win there. But to aim at 40 and to come home with 36, I mean, people behind our desk, analysts were saying this may not happen. But the reality is, what do you think was the key factor in actually bringing this home?
It's hard to say for certain, but I do think that leaders Fain did a great job of advertising the concessions that were made in the past to justify the asks for the future, if you will. And he was very, very pointed about his position. Before the strike happened, he talked at length about what the auto workers needed and deserved and expected. And I think because he telegraphed it, and also, by the way, telegraphed it with the offset of pointing out that executives had been making money and getting increases for years now. So the executives were doing better and better and better. I think that turned the public spotlight on this. Interestingly enough, not only did President Biden show up at one point in support of the strikers, but so did former president and current presidential hopeful President Trump show up in support of the striking workers. So both sides of the political aisle, in this case, the Democrats and the Republicans, were supporting the union in their advocacy for better wages and benefits and for more industrial capacity and work to be done in these United States. So I think that's a political observation that probably helped in the strength of the cause.
We talked about auto workers, but let's shift our focus for a moment because in addition to auto workers, we also had actors and writers who actually went on strike. And not just for a couple of days, literally we're talking months. Began in July 2023. This is particularly for actors, 118 days of strike. When we talk about the writers, 148 days, and a lot of fiery conversation about this because actors saying, listen, you got AI out there, writers talking about AI. That became a huge talking point during this negotiation period, but let's break it down.
Sure. So you're absolutely right. AI was an issue both for the actors and the screenwriters. For the screenwriters, the issue was whether or not AI could be used to generate sort of evolutions from scripts that they might be writing. For the actors, it was, if you could believe, the use of their images. That is, they were concerned about having computer-generated images of them used to finish production. So, for example, maybe you would shoot for 2 days and the actor wouldn't want to come back to the set. The studio would say, don't come back, and we won't pay you for having to come back because we're going to use a computer-generated model of you for some part of the show, which is just fascinating technology these days. But both of these groups got together. Frankly, the actors were supporting the screenwriters, and then the screenwriters were able to resolve it, and the actors shortly thereafter. And some great gains here, too. With the screenwriters, I believe the percentage of members that endorsed the deal was like 99%. So very, very, very happy workers with the result. 11,000 of them in number. Similarly, the actors got some great results, too. I'm happy to talk about some of the results if you like.
Yeah, I do want to talk about some of the results because when we talk about particularly actors in the strike, we do know that wages were increased, and I looked at one in particular, those who are going to have some speaking roles up by 7%.
That's right. That's right. And better residual rights also. So if you're involved in a show or a production that does well, they have a continued carry interest in the results of that show. So you're in a show that does well, you don't get just paid for you're shooting the show, but you get paid in the future if it continues to be carried and picked up and picked up by networks and reproduced from time to time, which is great. Basically allowing them to share in the benefit of the good art that they help produce. Moreover, particularly with the actors, I think this AI issue was of great concern. They did not want to be able to be sort of computer generated out of their roles. I still can't believe that's possible, but I guess it wasn't that long ago that I think was it Tupac that appeared in a concert and he wasn't really there. It was a computer generated image of him. So I guess the studios have that capacity now, but they are not allowed without consent. So basically, they're not allowed to use computer generated images of actors to continue the furtherance of shooting or shows or anything like that, which, frankly, is fair. I mean, if you're an actor, you don't want to be able to have your image captured and then not to be paid again for acting. It would be ludicrous that that could happen, I suppose, and it's just in terms of a moral compass of fairness. But it's great that they were able to solidify their rights to their image so that the studios can't use it and exploit it and take advantage of them.
Yeah, and I want to get to one thing that's pretty popular these days, and that's streaming. And when it comes to streaming residuals, that was also part of the agreement too, because that was a sticky point.
That's exactly right, and it's a good point, right? Because now there are just so many shows that are going out, and the worry for writers in particular was they would write great content, produce great art, and then if it did well, there was just virtually no opportunity to share in the benefit of that great work that they did. The contract indeed gives them residual rights to the art that they create, and moreover, gives them an opportunity to get bonuses for doing great work, and that is a hallmark achievement. They have not once before ever in any contract been entitled to bonuses for successful work on projects. Now, under this contract, they do get bonuses. So if they're the great writers for Friends, or if they're the great writers for I don't know, I'm trying to think of a great Modern Family or whatever it is, The King of Queens, something that does really well, not only do they share in the benefit of doing it right and getting paid for doing it right to start with, but they get a share in the residuals for the continuation and the publication of that show. So just a great result for artists out there who are entertaining us and making us think about the world differently. Two other great contracts for the actors and the screenwriters that will make them happy and allow them to continue to deliver content that we all enjoy watching and watch them over the holidays, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah, I got less about than a minute here, but I need to get on this because this affects more people than a little bit. The loss of, or I should say, unpaid wages actually being classified as theft. This went into effect about 2 months ago. But I should say, do you feel as though this will be something major that we can look at down the pike?
Well, it's very important to consider, right? That depending on who does the assessment, there's between $1 and $3 billion of wages not paid to workers in New York. That's a ton of money, and these are for small business owners, small freelancers who do the work, and then the company says, "Well, I'll only pay you half," and they don't have the resources to go after the rest or something. There's been this trend in New York for more and more rights for people who don't get paid their wages in full. This now increases the criminal ramifications for business owners not paying their workers in full, which is just great. I think it's going to change the leverage for workers who are not paid. It's going to change the motivation for employers who aren't paying to please make sure they do pay. And just as another nod to collaboration here, it was this initiative to make unpaid wages a larceny was one joined by Democrats and Republicans equally. So full support from both parties on this. To help champion the rights of workers not being paid their wages, which I think is great.
Yeah, a lot happened throughout the course of 2023, and we're definitely taking a look at it. Got to have you back soon. We got to break down some more things. But Patrick, great to see you, and happy holidays to you and the family.
My pleasure, and best to you and yours also. Take care.
All righty. For more information, visit the website at theboydlawgroup.com.